Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the second day of LACMA's LA Artist-themed Evenings for Educators during the program's 40th anniversary year. My name is Laura Schilling, and I'm the Teacher Programs Coordinator at LACMA. It's so great that you could join us today. Thank you for being here. If you missed Tuesday's really wonderful lecture with LACMA curator Rita Gonzalez, you will be able to watch it on our YouTube channel the week after the program ends, and we'll be sending out an email to you with all of those details. Before we get started, I'd like to share a land acknowledgement. LACMA acknowledges that the lands on which the museum is built and the region that we serve is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva, Gabrielino Kizh, Fernandeño Tataviam, and Ventureño Chumash peoples. Los Angeles County has been and is home to many indigenous peoples whose ancestral lands are here and elsewhere. This acknowledgement marks LACMA's commitment to interrogating our own position in the structural conditions of settler colonialism and working to dismantle them. So we created some special curriculum resources for this program that we're going to share in the chat right now. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback from somebody's microphone. If you're currently in the audience right now, could you just make sure that the mute button is selected in the lower left of your toolbar, just so we don't have any of that feedback. Thank you so much. So we created some really great curriculum resources for this program. We're going to share that link in the chat. These resources go into greater depth on 3 of the artists that Rita discussed in her lecture, and they include just a lot of really great stuff like artwork images that you can blow up, discussion questions, activity ideas, videos, and lesson plans. So make sure to spend a little bit of time with those if you can. And depending on the grade level you teach, you also might be able to just share these pages directly with your students and have them work through the content on their own. We're also going to share some links to our K-7 video-based resources and virtual field trip signups. The field trips really fill up super quickly, so be sure to grab a slot for next semester if you're at a Title I school and you're interested in participating. We also have 2 more workshops next week, Objects in Harmony and Strength Self-Portrait. Strength Self-Portrait, which is taking place on the final day of the program, December 10th, is going to include a really special conversation between that focus artist, Judith Hernandez, and one of my colleagues here in the education department, Maria Ramos. So definitely don't miss that. Click on those registration links if you haven't signed up yet. And I don't want to take up any more time because we have a really awesome workshop planned for today. So I'm going to introduce Alessa Quiroz, who will be teaching today's workshop, City Graffiti. This is our first text or language-based workshop this year. So it's going to be a really nice treat. Alessa is a bilingual visual artist and educator based in Los Angeles. Growing up in Miami, surrounded by different cultures, she cultivated her love of art, passion for teaching, and dedication for making art accessible to underserved communities. Her experience ranges from having work shown in galleries to being the lead art teacher at a Title I middle school. Currently, Alessa works as a teaching artist at LACMA, and we're so glad to have her. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alessa now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Laura. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today's workshop is going to be all about an LA artist, specifically an LA graffiti artist, and his name is Gajin Fujita. And the way that this 1-hour workshop is going to be kind of like broken down is first we're going to take a couple of minutes to talk about his artwork, and then I will take you guys on a step-by-step demonstration of the art project that we will be doing, and then we will have some time at the end to do a reflection and to share both in breakout rooms and then back here in the main room. But before we get started, I just want to make sure that we all have our supplies. So we do need 2 sheets of copy paper. So just like regular white computer paper is fine. A pencil, an eraser, and then also any kind of coloring utensils. So it could be crayons, color pencils, markers, oil pastels, watercolor, anything that you have is fine. I will personally be using color pencils for this workshop, but feel free to use anything else if you're more comfortable in another medium. And then we will also primarily be using the chat feature. So if at any time there's any questions or comments, just write it down in the chat and I'll try to get to everybody. So let's get started. All right, so taking a look at this first image. So this was done in 2005 and it's called Study of Green Samurai from Street Fight. Now, can anybody already notice any graffiti influences? Just feel free to write it down in the chat. It could either be something about the materials or maybe the subject matter. Aerosol paint, awesome. Spray paint, right? Okay, so a lot of spray paint, paint platter, airbrush, awesome, right? So the image on the right is actually just the same image as the one on the left. So the one on the left is the full image. Oh, the flag, the stencils, awesome. Yeah, that's great. So the image on the right is just the close-up image of the actual piece. So right here on the bottom, we can see the use of spray paint. And then if you look at the image on the right, that's very obvious, the use of the spray paint, right? Because it gives that spray platter effect. And then we also see the use of stencils. So all of those white negative spaces, the geometric shapes that you see throughout the whole painting, that was all done with stencils. So the way that works is he probably started off with a blank page, added the stencils on top, did the spray paint, and then once you remove the stencils, it creates that really cool negative space effect. So now this was done a year later in 2006. It's called Contemporary Projects 9, Gajin Fujita and Pablo Vargas Lugo. So what's the first thing that maybe calls your attention or something that's different from the previous? Okay, somebody said bombing, yeah. What's taking up the most space? Tags, right? So it does seem like it got tagged a lot. The lettering, right? The Japanese font, actual tagging samurai, the letters, right? So the main thing in this artwork is the focus is that graffiti style lettering. And he did several types of lettering, roundness versus sharpness feel. Yeah, that was a great comment. So if we look at the bottom word, it says die. It's in black and kind of like a white silver. So that graffiti kind of style lettering, it seems a lot more polished and clear and more refined. And then towards the center, we have like that yellow-green lettering. That one seems a little bit more sketch-like. And then all the way in the background, throughout the whole image, he really made use of the space. And it does seem like he tagged it a lot, right? And again, we have the same use of spray paint. So now for this artwork. So this artwork is actually what we're going to be basing our art project off of. So it's called the Corrido of LA, and this was done in 2010. But before I give anybody, before I give the backstory to this drawing, does anybody know what even a corrido is? Or if you take a look at the words underneath each letter, why do you think the artist wrote these specific words under the letter? Oh, somebody put music, right? So a corrido is a type of music, a traditional song, right? Is a traditional Mexican song usually in Spanish. Folk ballad, Mexican regional. Yeah, it's a story. Right. So this drawing was actually done by Gajin Fujita, and it was done for USC and for LACMA because both LACMA and USC, they hosted this event to celebrate the centennial of the Mexican Revolution. And so now we know why we have that word LACMA under the O, and then we have USC under the R, right? Because both of LACMA and USC sponsored this event. And what a corrido is, it's basically a ballad, so a song, and it's usually used to really take note of a lot of like social life and political life back in Mexico. And so for this event that they sponsored, students both through 7th through 12th grade in LA were asked to create a ballad, so a corrido, about the Mexican, the revolution. And they were asked to write it about LA. And so that's why we have LAUSD written right here under the second R. And then also the songs that were chosen to be performed at the event were going to be performed by the band called Ozomatli, right? And so that's why we see Ozomatli written under the C. So now taking a look at the drawings inside of the word corrido. Can anybody recognize anything? Does anything seem familiar? Inside of the drawings of LA, right? The chopper, right? We have the helicopter inside of the D. There always seems to be a helicopter flying around LA somehow. City Hall, the skyline, right? The cityscape, DTLA, right? So this is inside. It is the downtown LA city, the skyline. We have the really, really tall palm trees, also very popular in LA, and again with the helicopter. So he obviously chose to draw inside of the word corrido things that remind him to like, oh, somebody put smog sunset. Yeah, the smoggy sunset, very familiar to LA. So what we're going to be doing for our project is I want everybody to start thinking of a city that means something to you. So it could be the city where you're from, the city where you currently live in. Maybe you visited somewhere that you really liked, or maybe it's a city that you want to visit too. So start thinking of that city and then start thinking of images and landscapes, objects, symbols that you feel could really represent that city. And that's really what we're going to be focusing on. And then we will also be, I'll also be showing you guys how to draw these graffiti style letters. It won't be exactly, but there are several ways to go about it. And then we're going to be decorating the background with these images that you guys thought of. So for the next couple slides are just like mood boards of cities, just to get some ideas going. So for this next slide, just taking a look at those three images. What city is this representing? New York, right? Yeah, that one's very easy. We have the typical yellow cab, we have all the city, and we have Central Park, right? So we want to make sure that we're choosing images that are like very easily recognizable. Yeah, everybody's putting New York, awesome. And then what about this next city? What's it? DC, right? So we have the monuments, we have the National Gallery, and all that stuff. Awesome. Do we have any questions so far before we begin? We're about to start the demonstration portion. No questions. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just looking for my desk. Oh, there it is. All right, so first we're going to be starting off with the white paper. So we just are going to need the white paper and a pencil, and we're going to start first on how to do block letters. Now there's a couple of things we want to keep in mind. So this paper that we're doing is just for practice, so this isn't going to be our final draft. So we're just going to practice how to do our graffiti style letters. I'm going to start first with practicing my name. So if you already have the city in mind that you want to do, feel free to practice using that city. If you haven't thought of it yet, no worries. We could just practice using our own names. So we want to start off by writing it really, really light. It's a little bit hard to see, but I'm just writing it really light just because we will be erasing. So these lines that we're doing right now is just to guide us, and we will be erasing them at the end. So that's why I'm suggesting to do it kind of light, so that way when we go back and erase them, you don't see them. And then we also want to make sure we're leaving at least a finger space between each letter. And that way, when we start doing the block and bubble letters, we're going to have space and they won't be like overlapping each other, right? So we just want to draw lightly. And we want to make sure we're leaving at least a finger space, maybe even a thumb, because that's a little fatter. And then once we have our name is when we're going to start outlining it, right? So this is a really easy trick, because a lot of time with students, especially the younger grades, they get a little intimidated by doing these kinds of letters because it has like double line and they get a little bit lost. So this is a really easy trick on how to get them to do it. So you just start off by writing it regular, and then depending if it's block or bubble letters. So first it's going to be these block letters. We're just going to be using straight lines and angles, and we're just going to trace. We're just going to go around each letter. And since it's the block style letters, we're just going to use straight lines and angles. And then if your letter has space inside, we want to make sure to trace that inside also, right? And so we're going to do that for every letter. And now that it's taking up space, that's why I said to leave the finger space, right? Because now we're taking up a lot of the space. And then we're just going to do that for every single letter, just trace around it. And then if there's a space inside, trace that too. And when we're tracing around it is when we can press a little bit harder. And then once you're done, you can go ahead and erase the first lines that you did, the guidelines. And so this is going to be kind of like your base. So you can choose to keep it like this, or you can choose to add stuff to embellish it, to make it more like of a graffiti style, or to make it more unique to your own style. And so some things that you could add to the block letters would be, maybe you can make them kind of look 3D. So the way we make them look 3D is by drawing angles. So you draw a line at an angle, kind of like at a 45-degree angle at each corner. So I did a line right here at the top. I'll hold it up a little bit so we can see. So you did a line, and I'm going to do a line at a 45-degree angle at every corner. Right, and then we just draw a line to connect those angles. And don't forget to do the inside. And then that way you're left with a 3D style A. And then you could just do the same thing for all the other letters, which is just drawing a line at a 45-degree angle at every corner. So that could be one way you could embellish the block letters. Another way could be just by doubling up the lines. So you could just go inside each letter and double them up. So for the L and the E, all I did was double up the lines, right? So there's many different ways that you could go about doing the graffiti letters, the block style. How do I do that to a C? Somebody comment. How do you do that to a C? For the 3D, I'll show you. So for the C, the curved letters are always a little bit tricky. So for the C, I would draw in 45-degree angle here, and then another one at this corner. And then you kind of just have to estimate. And then it's kind of the same concept for an S, right? We just, if you see any corner, draw a 45-degree angle, and then just kind of estimate where the 3D part would start and where it would end. I'm just gonna, feel free to keep sketching or keep practicing. I'm just gonna do another demonstration for bubble letters. So bubble letters is the same thing, but instead of using angles and straight lines, we're gonna be using a lot of curvy lines. And it might be helpful to decide what city you're doing, because depending on the city, I would probably depend what kind of lettering you choose. So maybe for New York, it would be like block style lettering. If it's a more like nature city, maybe we would start off with the bubble letters. And again, always remembering to leave a finger space between each letter and drawing very lightly. That way, when we go back and erase, there's no problems. And that's like one really important thing to tell students, I find, because I find students always like to really press down with the pencil really, really hard right off the bat. So it's really important to tell them to just like sketch very lightly. Okay. Some people are asking to do a lowercase a and an S. I'm assuming it's the block 3D type. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'll just go ahead with the S. So an S. You start off again with just the angles. So an S only has 2 corners. So you do a 45-degree angle on both corners. And then it's like a short little one here at the top, a longer one in the bottom, and then there's one skinny little piece in the middle. and then a lowercase a. Oh, I have the A over here. So the A right over here. We have 3 corners that you could draw the 45-degree angle from, and then just connect those. All right, so back to the bubble letters. Oh, I forgot to do the insides. So if we have letters that have insides, so like an E, an A, a D, or a B, don't forget to do the insides of those. And then erasing the center. All right, and then with this one, you could also do the 3D lettering style if you like. I don't think it looks as good as it does with the block letters, but usually what I like to add for the bubble style letters is you can kind of make it look like there's paint dripping. So you could just add stuff to the bottom of letters and just like really organically, just do like little like paint drips at the very bottom. And then erase. And then maybe like some paint drips are falling. And I'll show you a close-up of that in a little bit. Right, so it kind of looks like the A is made out of like paint and it's dripping down. So that could be another cool effect to add. And you just would do that mostly at the bottom. And then you could include some little splatters of paint everywhere. Another thing that you could do with the bubble letters would be maybe if you want the ends to look a little bit more cursive and fancy, you could feel free to add like little swirls at the ends of the letters, or maybe make some skinnier. If you prefer to write in cursive, you could do the same kind of technique in cursive. So you would just start off by writing whatever city you want to do in cursive, and then you do the outline, and that could look really neat, I think. Does anybody have any questions about any of the letters? Does anybody need me to do a demo? No. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on the final draft, so on the second sheet of paper, but feel free to keep sketching if we're still trying to figure out what kind of city or what kind of lettering we want to do. So once you have your page, I would suggest putting it horizontally, but I guess it really depends on what city you end up choosing. And usually I like to write the letter in the center. Oh, I do have some other suggestions. So this is an example that I already did. I did it of Miami. And so I kind of used a combination of both the bubble letters and the block letters. So for example, for the M, it has some of the bubble letters. The A kind of looks like the block letters. But what I also decided to include is in the actual word itself, I decided to also draw things that were representative of Miami. So for the I did a palm tree instead of just the regular I. And then for the third I did this symbol. Does anybody know what that symbol is? If you're into the Heat, yeah, right. So it's the Miami Heat. So our Heat, our basketball team is the Miami Heat, and like this is their symbol. It's like a flaming basketball. And so I decided to do that on top of the I instead. So there's really a bunch of different ways you can get creative with just the lettering, right? So so you can incorporate whatever city you choose to do with the lettering. So maybe you can make one of the eyes into a building, or you can use other objects to show that instead. Oh, somebody asked, what for cursive, would you put a finger space also? I would not put a finger space, but I would space out the letters. And if any of the letters have any like loops, like maybe like an L or the M's, I would space it out a lot more. That way you have space when you want to trace around to do the inside. Then also, should the angles for the 3D effect be the same, like a shadow? Yes, so all the angles would be the same. So if you are doing the 3D letters, all the angles should be facing the same way. You could do it the other way if you want, do a 45-degree angle this way instead of doing it the other way, but yes, they should all be the same way. can we do a subset of LA? Is the idea to do a completely different place? Somebody asked. No, if you want to do LA, feel free to do LA. You could just do LA or Los Angeles. If you want, you could do a neighborhood in LA, right? So it's the idea is just to pick any city, right? We don't all have to do different cities. We could do LA. All right. So if anybody's already starting on the final draft, what I like to do is also kind of create like a very light guideline of how I want my words to be placed. You can choose to just write it like straight and center, like completely horizontal, or you can write it kind of like on a curve, like how I did with Miami. So you could just draw kind of like a guideline. And then I think the city that I'm going to do is going to be Lima. So Lima is in Peru. And I'll probably do cursive. So if anybody's interested in seeing how that works cursive, I will be demoing that. And then we want to make sure we're not writing the word too big, because we do want to have enough space in the background. We do want to have enough space in the background to add our drawings. And then, so while we're all sketching our words, we should start thinking of anything that we want to draw for the background, maybe like a famous landmark or an object or some kind of symbol that represents the city. So for example, for me, since I'm doing Lima, I'll probably maybe do Machu Picchu, even though that's not technically in Lima, I guess. But you can fudge it a little bit. And then maybe some llamas. Everybody loves llamas. Oh, maybe the flag. So the flag could be a good option to add to your city or country. Really, it's up to you. Does anybody want to share any tricks that they figured out, or maybe how they're editing the letters to their own, or what they're going to draw in the background depending on the city, to give some other people some ideas maybe? Right, and then don't forget to write very lightly at the very beginning so it's very easy to erase. Okay, so if anybody was curious about the cursive, this is how it would kind of look like. If you want it to look a little bit more refined, I would suggest making the double lines a little skinnier, so that way it looks a little bit more refined. But I think I'm fine with it looking like this. So I think also this would be a really cool project, not only to do just in an art class, but let's say you're doing a geography lesson or a social studies lesson or anything that has to do with different cities or even different countries. This could be a really cool project to add on to that lesson. Maybe the students could show you how much they've learned through their drawings. Oh, somebody put, I'm doing my school name and the campus and letters. Yeah, that's a good one too. So it doesn't only have to be just limited to cities, right? It could really be anything. It doesn't just have to be a location. All right, and then, so once I'm done with the drawing, that's when I'm gonna start drawing the images in the back. This part you don't have to draw lightly, of course, depending on whatever medium you're using. But I would try to start off probably somewhere in like the middle ground. So since I'm doing Lima, I guess I would probably do Machu Picchu in the background and then add like the smaller details in the foreground. Did anybody pick a city that they've traveled to? or their home city. Oh, somebody put this can also be done with a perspective unit. Yeah, that would be really cool. You could do like 1-point perspective and teach it and start it from there. Oh, some people are doing San Fran, Detroit, Dublin, Ireland, Singapore for 5 years. Wow, that must have been nice. What are you drawing for Singapore? Los Angeles over a halo. That's cool. Rome, it's my favorite city to visit. Nice. So fun fact about Machu Picchu is that it kind of looks like the profile of like a face. So if you look at a face this way, that's the outline of the mountain behind Machu Picchu is very similar to the outline of a face. So that's why it kind of looks like a face if you look at it sideways with a really big nose. And then it's really up to you how many details you want to add. I think just as long as we're all drawing something that's easily recognizable, either from the city or from if you decided to do a building or something, we just want to make sure that it's easily recognizable. Does anybody have any questions about any other kind of lettering? Or if somebody would like me to do a demo of something else? Great, so now I'm done with the Machu Picchu outline a little bit. It's just like a rough sketch. And then I'll probably do the llama over here on this side since it seems like it's emptier. Can I do a capital block F? Yes. All right. I'm assuming you wanted it also in the 3D. Oh yeah, 3D. So we start by doing the 45-degree angles at every corner, like that, and then just connect all of them. And it should look something like that. Another thing that we could add to the 3D letters to make it look even more 3D would be to shade it in. So if you really are going for that full 3D effect, you can shade in the part that you added to the letters at the same angle, at a 45-degree angle, and just shade all the way down. And if you do that for every letter, it makes it pop out even more, giving it like that really good 3D look. I think, but the key to the shading is to really shade it at that 45-degree angle. So you're just following the same angle of the lines. Oh, please demonstrate the 3D letter again. Can you model lowercase e in cursive? I'm trying to do the bubble letters of Mexico City. Okay, first, please demonstrate the 3D letter again. Lynn, is there a specific letter you want me to demonstrate?
No, just the technique.
Oh, just, okay. So I'll do I'll do D. So we have the block letter, right? And so at every corner, so in this case, there's only 2 corners, we draw a 45-degree angle, just like a short little line, and then connect the dots. But if you kind of like try to picture the D in your head, I know it's kind of like weird to try to picture a 3D letter, but you would assume that there's also some part of that object is right over here, and then another piece is over here. It's easier to do the more if the letter has a lot of angles, that's easier to do. But since the D only had 2 corners, I could also demonstrate maybe the G, although that one doesn't have that many corners either. Okay, oh, the H. Okay, so since the H is filled with a lot of corners, right? So you start by drawing an angle at each corner, just like that. And then you just start connecting them. And then here, you would cross over. And then go back down. And then that would be the 3DH. And then somebody asked, model the lowercase e in cursive. I'm trying to do the bubble letters with Mexico City. All right, so an E. Well, can you do the O in block 3D? So for the O, if we just want to make sure we're angling it at the same way, but since the O doesn't have any corners, right, you kind of just have to make up your own. So there would be kind of like a corner right over here, and maybe one right over here, and then connect them, and then do the same thing on this side. And then for the cursive E, and then that would be the E. Right. Does anybody else need me to demo anything else in any specific format? And remember, you can edit these, right, and make it your own, right? So it doesn't only have to be block letter or bubble letter. It could be a combination of both. Maybe some of them can have the 3D style, or you could do a combination of like cursive, and then you can also add different elements to your lettering, right, depending on what city you're doing, and make it unique in that way. And I'm still drawing the llama. Block letter M, yes. Did you want the capital M or lowercase? Capital, okay. So the M should be pretty straightforward because it has a lot of the corners. So again, we start off with 45-degree angles at every corner that you see. And remember, they should all be facing the same way. So I think that's the key to making the 3D letters look 3D, is that all of the angles are facing the same direction. And then once you have all the 45-degree angles at every corner, you just connect them. And then you have the M. Oh, and it's time to do our breakout rooms, actually. Yeah. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Oh. Okay, so for the breakout rooms, it's going to be 10 minutes total, right? So for the first 5 minutes, you're just going to share your art with the group. And it's okay if we're not done, right? I'm assuming most of us aren't even halfway done. Just share what you have. So we're going to be talking about what city you chose and why. How did you choose to represent your city? So did you also represent your city in the lettering? What kinds of images or landscapes did you choose to draw in the background? And then also share what kind of graffiti style letters did you do, or did you make up your own? Did you do a combo? What part did you find difficult? Right, so that's going to be for the first 5 minutes is sharing your art. And then for the last 5 minutes of the breakout rooms, we're going to be discussing the classroom applications. So how could you apply this to your own classroom, right? So what are other subjects that this lesson could be applied to, and any other cross-curriculum connections that you can think of. So that's going to be a total of 10 minutes. Right, and then we're going to come back here to the main room, and then we're all going to have a chance to share whatever we discussed in the breakout rooms. And while everybody's getting settled, I think somebody asked to do vowels, I think it was. Lowercase vowels in the block lettering, maybe. Small block vowel letters, yeah. Okay, so A. Susie, are we in the breakout rooms?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna keep demoing. Somebody asked earlier how to do the block style letters, just the vowels though. So once you do these letters enough, you won't have to use the initial guidelines that we were doing at the very beginning that we had to do really light. So once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to just kind of estimate where the double lines go. And it also gets easier to imagine the 3D placing. Okay, so we have the vowels, and then we start doing the 45-degree angles. And the part that it gets tricky is when we have curves. And so when we have a lot of curves, like an A and the E and the O and then the U, that's kind of when you have to use your imagination and just kind of like try to picture the 3D letter in your head and where this part would land. And there's also kind of like a trick. So if you look at the inside of the A, so this is the part that goes 3D. And as soon as this part ends, the other side starts. So when this starts to get skinnier and end, it picks up on the other side. And then it starts to get thicker, thicker, thicker until it gets skinny. And then it picks up on this side. So that could be a good trick to do. And it's the same thing with the E. So it ends here, right? So the 3D part ends here, and we're going to pick it back up on this side and extend it all the way to the top. And then do it on this side. The I is pretty simple, right? We just do the 45-degree angle at every corner. And then the O, this one is the one where you really have to use your imagination. So kind of picture it here. And since it ends over here, we're going to pick it back up over here and then extend it all the way to the top. And then the U. And have this corner over here. and that would be the vowels in 3D.
Hi, I was the only person in my room.
Oh, probably nobody else wanted to go to the breakout room. You can feel free to just hang out here in the main room, and then we could just, it's only going to be 10 minutes, so we'll just wait for everybody to get back.
Okay.
Does anybody want to share any of their art, what they have so far, any classroom applications that they can already think of, ways to apply to their lesson? We're all diligently working. Does anybody need me to demo any of the letters? I think that we could also apply this lesson, maybe not even to like cities, but maybe if a student is doing like a book report, or if anybody's doing any lessons on reading, maybe instead of a city, maybe instead of like the word being the name of a city, maybe it could be the name of a character, and maybe the background could just be a bunch of drawings of something that that character identifies with, right? So there's many different ways that we could edit this lesson, and not just have it be of a city. One other thing I also think would be a really cool idea is just to leave the inside of the city, so the inside of your word, just leave it empty. If you leave it blank, and then have the background completely covered, right? Even if you could even color the sky, and that way the name of the city pops out a lot more, right? Or you could just also outline the name in marker. I think that's how I did it. Yeah, that's how I did it for this example. I just outlined it in marker and then did the rest in color pencil. And I think it really made it pop out, but it probably should have colored also the sky, and then it really would have made it stand out. Is anybody in here another art teacher? Do we have any art teachers? No. Oh yeah, K-5. Nice. That's a nice grade. Have you ever introduced graffiti into your curriculum? I feel like that's something that usually gets left behind. Yes, all the time. That's nice. Yeah. I know personally, all my teachers growing up, we never talked about graffiti because, I don't know, it seemed like it was something that was not talked about at all. Definitely not studied in school or learned about, or even said that they were artists, right? Every time graffiti was mentioned, it was always something that it was like illegal, tagging, you know. But it's nice to see that things have come a long way. Oh, you're welcome. As for the age groups, I haven't really tried this lesson with the really younger grades. So like K through second, I haven't really tried this lesson with. I would say mostly because of the lettering. But I think we could try the lesson with the younger grades, but maybe instead of taking 1 hour on doing the whole thing, maybe it would be spread out. Maybe it would be like 1 hour focusing on the lettering. So that could be a whole lesson in and of itself, right? Learning about all the different styles, and maybe the next lesson would be the background. So I think it really is, it could be for any grade. It just depends on how much time you would want to take. Because for the upper grades, I would say an hour would be sufficient. And the breakout rooms should be ending pretty soon. Has anybody had the chance to go to attend the other evenings for educator workshops? The ones in October? No. Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah. People are trickling in from the breakout rooms. Welcome back, everybody. Oh, nice. Was anybody able to finish their art? Oh, no. I see heads shaking. Yeah.
And everyone should be back now, Alyssa.
Oh, nice. Great. Welcome back, everybody. Does anybody? So we're going to be using the raise your hand feature. Does anybody want to share anything they learned or share their art, any classroom applications?
Your letter mightily pleased me. To a wonderful degree is your letter pleased me. Me.
Oh, Castillo, Reina.
Hi, yes, this is my work, San Fernando.
San Fernando.
Yes, so I have the mission going, the cross for San Fernando. We still have some palm trees, and the
Yeah.
bottom it's the 210 freeway. So if you look, the car has 210.
Oh, it's a nice detail.
Yes, and I have my name, the name of my son, and the name of my husband, BS.
Oh, that's a nice detail.
Yes.
Very, very similar to the artwork we just learned about, and you did the 3D letters. Very cool.
Yes, but I think my husband pointed out, he was like, I think you're doing like some shot 3 days going one way and then the other letters going the other way.
Yeah, that's
Oh my
the
God.
tricky part.
I was
Yeah.
like, does that make a difference? He's like, yeah.
I mean, it gives it the overall effect. So I think you accomplished it.
Thank you. And I'm thinking, I was sharing my group, maybe, have start the students with writing their name, because I felt that was, I was confident with that, and that just led you to the next step.
Yeah.
And maybe use it maybe during the holidays, make a card using the lettering for someone, that you care for, or a teacher, or maybe they can, I was actually, after I left them, I was thinking maybe, they can do something like this as a cover for the reports.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of little like ways we can edit the lesson. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Julia, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I'll share mine. So I did New Orleans, but I abbreviated it NOLA, so it'd make it easier.
Yeah, that would have been a mouthful.
Yeah. So, and then just kind of working on some symbols. I can't think of the name of this building, but it's I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. But and then just a mask. I'm working on the fleur de lis, music
Nice.
notes, beads.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
anyway.
Very NOLA.
Yeah.
When
And then I was just gonna say, we were just talking about, I loved your idea about, depending on what you're learning, if you're learning about a country or a city or a state or whatever, I think that's great. And so we were kind of talking about, you could even make it as basic as a subject. In the beginning of the year, often we ask the kids, what's your favorite subject and why? So draw the word math, if that's your favorite subject, and why do you like it so much? Draw pictures and, try and explain why that's your favorite. So
yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, it's definitely like a different way that students could show how much they've learned besides just regular like pencil paper writing. This is
absolutely. And some students that they really are, that's their strength.
Right.
So it's nice for them to feel confident. Maybe they're not very strong writers, but they're really good artists.
Right.
So it gives them
It's
that
their
little
time to
boost.
shine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Guinevere?
Okay. Hello. Hi. I should know that I shouldn't mute myself. I don't know if you guys can see it. Okay, there it is.
Yes.
So this is Highland Park. This is where I'm from. I also still work there. I don't live there anymore, but we have so many iconic like symbols that represent HLP. Even though people call it HP, it's not. But anyway. That's like a big stickler with us people. But the murals, we're famous for murals, the Highland Theater, the avenues, Chicken Boy, the cobble from the Loomis, Chicken Boy, it's a big structure that's on top of the Highland Theater, the Victorian houses that are still there. And some of the things that we talked about in our group was really interesting, like researching a place. Hopefully they could teach us about maybe something like their heritage, like a place that they would want to research and then present it in the block letters. And then what about if they read about the characters in a story and use symbols and icons that represent them and see if we can guess, like, why did they pick those symbols? And just have fun that way. So I think it's a fun activity for kids to do.
Yeah, definitely. And for the kids to be able to share that, I think would be great too. And it could be like kind of like a guessing game, like, oh, why did I choose this? Why did I choose that? That would be really fun.
It'd be like a good review, like
Yeah,
trick them into learning stuff.
Yep. Great ideas. Linda? Oh, nice.
Hey, Alessa, I'm going to jump in real quick because it's just about 5 o'clock and I don't want us to run too much over today. This was such a fun workshop. It was super cool to follow along with you, and I wish I had made my own during it. Maybe I will a little bit later tonight, but such a great project. So many awesome classroom applications. We would love to take a screenshot of everybody holding up their drawings before we leave for the evening. So if everyone doesn't mind kind of holding up their drawings for like 10 seconds while we take some screenshots, please make sure you cover your face because we can't get photo releases for all of you. So just cover your face with your drawing and make sure it's super visible, and we'll take a couple screenshots before we go. And then we'll also share a few more materials in the chat. And just hold up those drawings for a little bit. Susie, our amazing tech assistant, is going to be taking the photos, and she will tell me when she's got them all captured. Oh my gosh, these are so great. I love them. I see Cleveland, Beirut, Miracle Mile, Singapore, Durango. So cool.
Alrighty, we have all the screenshots, Laura.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Susie. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating in that. We're going to share all the links from the beginning of the program in the chat again, including first and foremost the survey link, which if you're doing this for salary point credit or professional development hours, you definitely have to fill out that survey so we can log you in. That's going to go in the chat, as well as the curriculum resources, the field trip information, and the registration links for next week's workshops. I know it's we're kind of inundating you with links, but there's a lot of really good stuff we want to share. And if you have any questions, you can always email me directly. I'm just going to put my email in the chat too. Feel free to reach out. Also, please feel free to send us photos of your awesome artwork. We would love to see it and keep it in our archives, so you can email those to me as well. I think Alessa would probably also like to have them in her teaching archive. So that's it for me. Alessa, I don't know if you have any final words before we log off for the evening.
No, just that it was so great being with fellow teachers and seeing everybody's creativity.
Amazing. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope to see you next week.